My name is Mort Satin, and I'm the Salt Guru. I am also the Technical Director of the Salt Institute in Alexandria, Virginia. We're here to talk about salt, one of the most common food ingredients that we consume every day of our lives. You hear a great deal about salt these days, and much of it is confusing and sometimes misleading. So we're here to demystify salt and to try and get rid of all the misinformation that's out there. During this series, we will explore a great many aspects of salt: how it is produced, how it is used, salt's role in nutrition, and its impact upon health. We'll even discuss salt and the environment. This is episode 1 in the Salt Guru series, and because we read so much about it and see television chefs using it and large food companies incorporating it into their recipes, the first episode will be devoted to sea salt. Well, what is sea salt? In fact, there's no official definition for sea salt. Don't forget that all salts, regardless of where they're obtained from, originally derived from the sea. The rock salt that we mine comes from ancient seas that dried up and left deep underground deposits in past geological ages. Here's an example. These huge deposits can be as deep as 2,000 to 3,000 feet below the Earth's surface. But because they're so large, it's practical for us to send miners down to retrieve the salt for our use. Now, there are other ancient deposits that are not quite as practical for conventional mining, so we drill wells down to those deposits and pump fresh water in, allow it to saturate with salt, and then bring it up and remove the excess water by evaporation. And this results in the purest salt. It is simply called evaporated salt, and you can see it's free-flowing and very fine, and it's the normal table salt that we use. The common understanding of what we refer to as sea salt is salt that is freshly made from surrounding seas by a process referred to as solar evaporation. Now, the process doesn't only use the sun, but also the wind. Making solar sea salt is fairly straightforward. The seawater is pumped or moved into a protected pond and allowed to rest under the influence of the sun and the wind. This evaporates the water and concentrates the salt. After an appropriate period of time, this concentrated salt water, called brine, is moved into another pond, and the first pond is recharged with fresh seawater. The process is repeated, moving the ever-increasing concentrations of brine from pond to pond until the concentration of salt is high enough to crystallize. In the final pond, where crystallization occurs, the salt is harvested. And here's an example, a nice example of sea salt. Because there are variations in the way sea salt is produced around the world, it can vary considerably from one location to another. Even within the same location, it may differ from producer to producer. And as a result, sea salt is not a standardized product and can vary in its sodium chloride content from 60 to 99%. Sodium chloride is the molecule in all salt that's responsible for its typical taste. The higher the sodium chloride content of sea salt, the more typical salt taste it will have. Other impurities in the sea salt come from the sea and the surface that the salt is harvested from. These are generally other minerals typically found in the sea and in sea muds. Now, there's a great deal of talk regarding the nutritional value of these other minerals, but there really are no reliable clinical studies published to support their supposed benefit. In fact, there's one problem associated with sea salt. Many people are misled to believe that sea salt contains sufficient iodine to replace the iodine found in iodized salt. And without any exception, this is not the case. Now, iodine is critical for cognitive development in children, and parents must understand that sea salt does not provide sufficient iodine for this purpose. Now, sea salts come in a great variety of forms, as can be seen from this lovely demonstration kit my daughter Carrie bought for me. It's produced by Chef Stefan from Nova Scotia, Canada. And here you can see all types of sea salts from different parts of the world. They vary in color, texture, and taste. Some of the salts, such as the ones in the top row, are roasting salts that are recommended for rubbing on large cuts of meat prior to roasting. Now, the second row demonstrates what are called pan salts, salts suitable for using when sautéing in the pan. While the third row, the final row over here, demonstrates the more spectacular finishing salts that are used to add color, flavor, texture, and generally speaking, pizzazz to dishes just prior to presentation. These interesting salt colors usually come from other minerals or from colorful microorganisms such as photosynthetic bacteria or algae that have evolved to live at the high salt concentrations found in solar ponds. In fact, it's interesting to see satellite images of solar salt ponds because they look like a patchwork of different colors due to these benign organisms. Now, while there is no international standard for sea salt, there is a standard for what is called food-grade salt. It is the Codex Alimentarius standard agreed upon by all countries. Now, the critical part of this standard is that food-grade salt, regardless of where it comes from, be it sea salt, rock salt, or evaporated salt, must contain a minimum of 97% sodium chloride. This means that anyone who uses food-grade sea salt in their recipes will have approximately the same sodium content as if they had used the normal evaporated table salt. There may be slight differences, but because food-grade salt must have a minimum of 97% sodium chloride, these differences are not really significant. Now, because it's the sodium chloride that's responsible for the typical salty taste that we love, it's impossible to lower the level without impacting the taste, unless you add complex chemical additives to enhance your taste perception. These salt enhancers will be the subject of another episode. So there we have sea salt. Interesting, colorful, and tasty variations of the salt that we eat every day. Until next time, this is the Salt Guru. Bye-bye for now.